I think the initiative you were reading was 1943 and the video was 1969, I believe, but I'll play the clip and then the floor is yours to explain what's going on here. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
In 1943, the following directive was issued from party headquarters to all communists in the United States. It read, "When certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them after suitable build-ups as fascist or Nazi or anti-Semitic, and use the prestige of anti-fascist and tolerance organizations to discredit them. In the public mind, constantly associate those who oppose us with those names which already have a bad smell. The association will, after enough repetition, become fact in the public mind."
So what's going on there, and how is that still almost completely the exact same structure the media is using to this day?
Well, it is exactly the same structure. And of course, I don't know if the audience, well, by the way, that was a terrible image. There are better images out there.
Sorry about that. I probably got it.
I'll have to get you a more clear image. Anyway, that's not important. I just had to laugh. It looked like I was underwater. But no, in those days, a little backstory on that. I had become aware of what was really going on in the world starting in 1960. So I had, first thing I had decided to do was to figure out what the heck was going on. And who were these people, the communists? They'd taken over large chunks of the world, Russia and China and Cuba and some countries in South America. What was this? What was this all about? So I was working for a large corporation, an insurance company downtown in Los Angeles at the time as kind of a junior executive. I was trying to climb the corporate ladder, Thank God I got out of that. But anyway, so I was downtown one day and I had a luncheon appointment with a client who also was downtown. And I had some extra time before the appointment was to come up. So I went into the library and I started getting some books on this. And I got the idea that, well, maybe I should go right to the source. I should go to the communist library. So I looked it up and sure enough, there was a communist bookstore in Los Angeles. I think it's still there, called the People's Bookshop. And so I went down and I started hanging out with the comrades. Of course, I'm dressed in a business suit and a tie and everything. They're looking very suspiciously at me. And but eventually they figured I was probably a good recruit. And they'd like to get people in the corporate world recruited also. So they invited me to they called it a study group. I knew it was a recruiting organization. They were going to propagandize me and give me books to read and all that stuff, which I did because I wanted to learn what they really believed. And I did. I stuck with it for a couple of months. And I bought a lot of books and I read them. And that was interesting because I discovered as I went back and talked to these guys that they hadn't read the books. They were selling them and they were motivated pretty much by the slogans, like from each according to his ability, to each according to his need, from Karl Marx. Well, that sounds pretty good, and then the other slogan, put an end to racism and war and all that kind of stuff. And workers of the world unite, throw off your chains of your capitalist exploiters. So they were operating on slogans which had a lot of energy to them, but they hadn't read the books. But I read the books, and when I would ask them questions, they couldn't answer. And so anyway, I discovered at that time that I knew what they were, what their ideology was. And I discovered, I don't want to take too much time on this, but this might be informative to your audience. I discovered the difference between Marxism and communism. And I thought it was pretty much the same. But no, it's not the same. If you read the communist literature, they always, at least the older original literature, they always made a difference between a Marxist and a Marxist-Leninist. Okay, it sounds like words. Well, Marxist or Marxist-Leninist. So the two names of the intellectual leaders of the communist movement. So what? Well, the so what is very, very important. Marx was the originator of the idea of the modern idea of collectivism in the form of communism and socialism, as he coined it too. And but in all of the countries that ever were taken over by communism, none of them were ever taken over by Marxists. They were all taken over by Marxists, Leninists. So who were they? Well, they are Marxists to start with. They had read, you know, the works of Karl Marx, Das Kapital and the Communist Manifesto, and they believed in the principles of collectivism. They called it socialism, and they were theorists. They were academics. They were debaters. They were intelligent people. Who were the Leninists? Totally different people. They read the works of Karl Marx, but they said, look, this is too academic. You're never going to conquer the world with ideas unless you convert the ideas into action, unless you come to power. And that's where Lenin added a very important flavor to this whole movement. He was the founder of the Communist Party. And that was like a militant or military organization, except it was in the beginning, it was meant to operate underground in secret and so forth. But he was concerned not with the ideas so much as the techniques and the strategies for coming to power. And in his collected works of Lenin, which was quite an extensive library, I've forgotten how many volumes there were, but it was a lot. He was very, he wrote a lot, let's just put it that way. He had a lot of literature. He wrote them in essays, and they were in the collected works. Well, I read them all. And I was kind of boring after a while because I found out that most of what he was writing was pretty much the same thing over and over and over again. What was that same thing? It was this. He would, I'm going to condense it now. He would say, this is the whole idea. Comrades, it makes no difference how much you know, how good you are at debate. It makes no difference if you know all the names and dates and arguments and you win the debates. Nothing like that makes any difference at all. The only thing that makes a difference is to come to power. Come to power. And you can say anything. You don't have to sell Marxism to come to power. Sometimes, comrades, you have to pretend like you are anti-Marxist to come to power. Because you have to get people to support you. So you can even be an anti-communist in order to come to power. And so, wow, isn't that interesting? And he would say things like, you know, the reason this is so, comrades, because once you come to power and people have trusted you and you are now the big man or part of the party, if they disagree with you, you can shoot them legally. I mean, he wrote this stuff. He was a very quotable guy. He wrote things like, promises are like pie crusts made to be broken. This is Lenin. Okay, so once you understand, Leninism is based on this concept of coming to power no matter what. I have to go into one more round. He would say things like, okay, if we go into a country, comrades, and we want to convert that, we want to take it over, and we want to destroy the old system and get rid of all the traditions, and we want to install international communism, internationalism, and give away all their national, their culture, their legal system, everything of that nationalistic quality. Do you go and preach those things to the masses who love their culture and their traditions? No. You pretend like you believe what they do, so they will like you and they will support you and they will make you their leader. Now, once you're in power, you can bring into effect all of the things we want, and they can't do anything about it. And even though they can see you doing it, they still remember you as their leader and they will follow you anyway. This is Lenin. Okay, that's important for Americans today to understand that, because that strategy has not changed at all. In fact, if anything, they polished it and perfected it to a fine quality today. And if people don't understand the concept of controlled opposition, they will never be able to understand the war that we're involved in. They certainly won't be able to win that war. Okay,